Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd step away from all the hauls that I've been doing, the thrift store hauls and the private sale hauls, and talk about where media is, well, specifically movies, where it's going, it seems like. Now, I haven't been collecting films for a long period of time. I mean, I've always had a smaller collection, but just in the last, couple of years, I've been collecting media. Because of COVID or whatever, it gave you an opportunity to be at home more. And, what are you going to do at home? You're going to maybe you'll watch Netflix or Amazon Prime, but I always preferred to find the movies that I wanted to watch rather than they're showing and uh, and watch those movies. So that's what I started to do more seriously when COVID, once all the lockdowns started and things like that, right? So my collection has expanded a large amount. Um, but the trend that I'm seeing, okay, is well, the trend basically is a streaming service is opening up every little while, right? Disney Plus is is the last big one, and now they have Fox, right? But pretty much what it looks like it is going to happen is all the major studios are going to come out with streaming services that you would subscribe to, right? So, and I think maybe that's why Netflix and the other ones are starting creating more and more content themselves, is because they're probably going to have more and more difficulty getting films from a lot of the major studios because they're going to have their own streaming service, right? Um, so they'll just play their own movies, right? And then you just sign up for them. But there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with streaming. It's such an easy thing to do. You may be tired after a day's work and you come home and just sit on your chair or whatever and you want to watch a movie. You don't really want to, let's say, go to your collection and figure out which movie to watch. Maybe you just want to zone out or whatever and put a movie on. So you put it on Netflix or whatever, and then you look for a film that you've probably already seen and you play that one because you don't want to watch a new movie because you just want the right experience, right? You know that you like, let's say, Superman 2 or something, and they just happen to have that on Netflix. So you say, oh, I like that film, so I'll watch that film because I know it, I'll enjoy it, right? So there's nothing wrong with streaming services, um, but what's happening with physical media? I mean, there's no replacement for physical media to actually have the film and just watch it as you choose, right? So, and people, what I've seen, where I see physical media going, all right, not that I'm Nostradamus or anything, right, but um, what I see more and more is the tendency to go expensive, all right. So um, everybody's everybody's excited about the newest 4K release, right? And people are collecting 4Ks like they did Blu-rays a few years back, right? And like they did DVDs when they started coming out. Um, but what I see is the average film is going up in price. All right, so um, because the average film is becoming less and less available, right? So what seems to be happening more and more is that, let's take the Criterion Collection. Okay, so the Criterion Collection, although it did put out mainstream films, was more a find a good film that's not in the market presently. Go look for it. Go see who owns it. Go get a print of it. Clean that print up. Make it look beautiful, and then put it out on a really nice boutique Blu-ray with a whole bunch of special features and extras and things like that, and then sell it for an expensive price. All right. So when you wanted a regular film, you just go get the DVD or later the Blu-ray. Um, but if you if you really like a film, um, and it was a foreign film, a non-English film, it was from Europe or maybe from Japan, um, uh, you're probably looking at a Criterion selection that you, in order for you to get that film, right? So that's what the Criterion was doing. They seem to be more now going into the mainstream market and picking up films that you can find, not too difficult just on a Blu-ray or on a DVD. So basically, what they're doing is they're encroaching on, the cheaper market for films, right? So and you're seeing a lot of boutique now. Criterion used to be the only one in town, right? So, but slowly, what you're seeing is more and more boutique Blu-rays, boutique cinema labels coming out and putting out film, getting the rights to films from uh, all the different film companies, and then putting them out on their own discs, and they charge an arm and a leg for them, right? So what they're catering to more and more is, the collector, the person that doesn't look so much at the price, but as what he's getting for the price, right? So a collector, especially, a well-off collector, right? So your average Joe who maybe, collecting, buying DVDs or whatever, have has a collection of films that he likes to watch, and what he's seeing is those films that were reasonably priced at one time are no longer reasonably priced anymore, right? I mean, you can still go on Amazon and find some films for, let's say, $7.99 for a Blu-ray. You can do that, and the uh, the boutique cinema labels do have sales, right? Barnes and Noble has a 50% off sale every year for the Criterions. That's probably the most known one, right? But Kino Lorber has sales, and Arrow has sales and everything, so you can get them a bit cheaper, but still you're paying a good amount of money for them. So what I see happening is the mainstream is going away from physical media, and they're more gravitating towards streaming services. All right, and then films are becoming more of a niche market where you'll have collectors coming in, like let's say motorcycle enthusiasts or collector car enthusiasts, where they'll get an older car, and they'll fix it up, and then they'll go to different shows, or they'll hang it with other people that do the same thing with cars, right? They're car enthusiasts, right? So, but your average Joe just goes to the dealership and buys a vehicle, right? So, but what I see is more and more of the boutique cinema labels going more and more into the mainstream films and creating like these really nice editions of these films, right? So, but what, so let's say Criterion goes and gets, let's say, this film, which is a great David Lynch film, all right? So originally I had that film on DVD, and I found it for a couple of bucks, all right? So um, it's pretty easy to find on DVD for a very cheap price, all right? So if you don't mind DVDs, just stick with the DVD. You can't go wrong with it, right? But what happened is, um, instead of the studio that put this out, all right, TVA International Distribution put the DVD out, right? What happened was, Criterion picked up the rights to the movie to put it out on Blu-ray, and now if you want that Blu-ray, and you can actually get it on DVD as well. The DVD right now is like around $24 American, and the Blu-ray is like $32 American. So if you convert that to Canadian, that's probably like $40 for the Blu-ray, right? Um, so if you want Mulholland Drive on Blu-ray, you won't be able to get it for the $7.99 price that it would have been, or the $10.99 or the $14.99 price. But eventually it'll go down in price to maybe a $9.99 or $7.99, that you would get if it had a mainstream release, right? Um, so what happens now is if you want that on Blu-ray or on 4K, if it comes out on 4K, you're probably going to be a boutique cinema label that you're going to have to buy it off of. And if you want to buy it off of them, you're going to be paying like in Canada, you're going to be paying $40 for it, right? Um, so that kind of see, personally, I don't care where I get the film. So I got this film for maybe $1, okay? But I also got this one for less than $1, okay? And that's the reason why I have it in my collection. I didn't pay the $40 for it. I bought a huge um, Blu-ray and DVD collection off a gentleman who was a really huge boutique cinema collector, and I basically bought about 2,000 films off of him, give or take between 1,500 and 2,000. I never counted it. For like $600. All right. So basically, every DVD and every Blu-ray I got off of him was less than $1 each. All right, and he had a ton of a boutique cinema stuff. Right. So that's the reason why I have a large collection of boutique cinema in my collection now. Right. But I would never go out and buy that unless it's I can find it on the secondary market for a reasonable price. Right. So here's another example. All right. So where did that one go? So I found this film, all right, which is a DVD again, all right, and Criterion got the rights to it to put it out on Blu-ray, and that's the Blu-ray. Now, I got this Blu-ray for under $1, all right, but if I was to buy it right now, it'd be close to $40 Canadian, and if I wanted it on DVD, um, it would be close to $30 Canadian, right? So because now Criterion has rights to it, right? So I looked on a through the secondary market, and I found this for under $5. Right, I think it was $2 that I got this one for. Right, so um, but what's happening more and more is boutique cinema labels are going into more and more into the mainstream and grabbing the good mainstream films, right, and putting out expensive editions of them, especially if they're gonna, if it only has a DVD release, and then they grab the they grab the rights to it and then they put it out on a Blu-ray or a 4K. All right, you're going to be paying through the teeth for it, right? Um, I find that a bit disappointing, but I understand. I understand that that's how physical media is probably going to survive. All right, mainstream people that would buy this if it came out on Blu-ray for like $9.99 or $14.99 or whatever, right? Um, or $7.99 eventually, aren't buying them anymore. So what happens is you got to attract the customers, right? So let's fancy it up, put it in a nice bow, add a whole bunch of extras, and charge $35 for it, so that when you do buy it, you feel like you bought something special. It's not just a blank T-shirt; it's a Nike T-shirt. You understand what I mean? It's not just a pair of average running shoes. It's you know uh, Michael Jordan running shoes, right? So you understand the so this is what I see physical media going towards is less and less mainstream issues for mainstream films, and what will happen a lot of the times is the studio that actually made the film won't put the film out. They will license it to a boutique cinema label, and that label will put out a really nice edition of it on 4K or on Blu-ray or whatever, and charge through the teeth for it, right? So what's happening is even even if I'm incorrect that mainstream, your average Joe, is moving away from uh, physical media and going towards a streaming service. Even if that isn't so, that's what it looks like, and the boutique cinema labels are basically pushing that already, right? So basically, if you're looking for a very good film, let's say you watch a film, you like the director, so you go look for another one of their films, but the only way that you can find it is in a boutique cinema collection of some sort, and you're going to pay $70 for it. Then you go, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to spend $70 on that. I can't justify doing that, right? So then you kind of look at all the different um, streaming services, and maybe you can find it there. Since more and more mainstream films are being picked up by boutique cinema. All right, so less and less are you going to find, especially Blu-rays or 4Ks that aren't, that have a regular release rather than a boutique cinema release, right? So that's what it looks like it's going. And the same thing happened to everything else. Now, movies are a bit different. I'll explain why I think they're different than, let's say, sports cards or comic books. All right. So what you've seen, especially in sports cards, and what you've seen over the last, let's say, 30 30 years or so, back in the early 90s. Okay, so Upper Deck came out in 1989, their baseball edition, the one with the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card in it. Um, and what they did was they came into a market where Topps and Fleer and these other ones were um, they were the regular baseball cards. They weren't like, high end type of baseball cards. And then Upper Deck comes in and puts out a really nice edition with really good card stock, really super photography, and so on and so forth, right? So they ended up forcing all the other baseball card uh, distributors to up their game as well. And what happened was, before maybe a company would put out one or two sets a year, they started expanding and doing different levels, where you'd have the base level, then you would have a medium style level, and then you would have the upper level, the high end level, right? So what happened was, all the companies started putting out extreme large amounts of baseball cards in the 90s, um, for high prices, and they were very high quality stock uh, uh, baseball cards, right? And but then they printed so many of them that none of them are really worth all that much money even now, like, like 30, 40 years later, right? So, but what they did is what happens with a hobby, what it turns into is somebody looks at it rather than a hobby, and looks at it as an investment, or like a business opportunity. And what you'll do is you'll have speculators come in, or people with more money coming into a hobby. And what they end up doing is they end up pushing the prices way up. So basically, back in the 80s, if you were collecting, let's say, baseball cards, you could get pretty much, mostly every baseball card, you could probably buy. I mean, you may need to save for it, but you could probably buy, if you ended up, spending like 3 weeks salary on a baseball card, maybe that. But I mean, don't quote me on it. But if I remember, when I back in 80, in the mid 80s, a Topps Mickey Mantle card, the 52 Mantle card, was, like, average rating, not mint condition or anything, but you could get it for under $1,000, like $400 to $600, right? And now that, in the 80s, would be, you know, I mean, if you were working just an average job, that would take you a bit of time to save up that money to buy that baseball card, but you could afford it even on an average salary, right? But then what happened was, when all the money started pouring into baseball cards by the 90s, but seriously, by the 2000s, what was happening was all the older baseball cards just shot up in price. And now, I don't know how much, it's in the hundreds of thousands, that baseball card now, rather than $600, right? Or maybe it was like $1,200. Anyways, it was a reasonable amount, that if you saved your money, um, you could get that card, and you could get most baseball cards. All right, you could buy them if you saved your money, and your average card wouldn't be a. Now, what the baseball card companies basically did was a manufacturer scarcity, right? So one of the one of the main things they did was they would put out a set, and that set would be one color, and then they would. So let's say they would print, let's say, 50,000 of each one of those cards, or let's say 5,000 of each one of those cards, or whatever. and then they would come out with, let's say, a diamond edition, or let's say a bronze edition of those. And instead of each one of those cards has 5,000, now they have 500 of those cards. And then they do a silver version, and each one of those cards has a border that's gold rather than, let's say, black or whatever, right? And then they'd have like a platinum edition where it would be like silverish gold or whatever, and there would be only one card for each one. So where collectors used to collect and try to finish sets, they could never do it with what happened in the the mid to late '90s, and it really basically you needed, where before you could have a reasonable amount of money to collect pretty much all the baseball cards that came out in a given year. Um, it just ballooned, right? And cards became manufactured rare, right? So they would put in your base set, and then they would have like a gold, a silver, a platinum, and a diamond um, version of that base set, and they were even rarer. And then they would have these specialty cards that would come out with, maybe part of a uniform or part of a bat in it, or they'd have a signature card, and maybe there was only three of them in the whole set of all the stuff they printed. So they're just creating scarcity, right? So basically, what happened was cards would come out of the pack for hundreds of dollars, right? So it was like gambling. But what happened in the '90s was, with the expansion, so many investors went into baseball cards, and it just shot up all the pricing, right? Where, let's say, the most expensive baseball card is still probably the T206 Honus Wagner, the Pittsburgh Pirates shortstop or whatever, and the tobacco card, the T206 card. Now, back in the '90s, Wayne Gretzky and Bruce McNall bought that card for, I think it was 450,000. All right, and this was in '92. Now, if you go back into the '80s, that card um, was expensive. All right, but like I said, if you saved, you could get a version of that card. All right, so but now that card is what? It's in the millions now. I think the last time I read a book, it's been a while. It sold for 3.5 million. That T206 card that Gretzky bought. All right, so he came in, bought the card for 450,000, and then a few years later sold it for like over a million or whatever. Right, so it was an investment to Gretzky and McNall. Right, so investors come in, they buy cards, they spend a lot of money, they push up the prices of all the cards, and basically what they did was they took the average person out of that hobby. All right, you had to be happy with collecting some cards. You had to be happy with maybe being able to finish a set. But then boxes, because of all these specialty cards that are in it, went from, let's say, $25 a box to $150 a box, right? So the prices just shot up for all of them, right? And it basically pushed out your average collector from that hobby. Um, it pushed out me, anyways, and a lot of friends and acquaintances of mine just said, no, this is getting way too complicated, and it's more like a crapshoot or whatever. You're buying a whole box of cards for $150 to try to find one card that you can put on eBay and sell for 150 to get your money back or whatever, and then you just keep the rest, right? So it was basically gambling. They basically turned baseball card collecting into gambling, right? And it basically killed it. And what you saw was a mass exit in the late '90s, early 2000s, a mass exit out of baseball cards for so many hobbyists and collectors, right? So the same thing happened with comics. All right, comics used to be, in that old stock. They were average, but then you ended up having the graphic novels that started to come out, and then you had, these really nice editions, and the prices just skyrocketed for for comic books. The paper stock got better. The coloring of them got better, and the card stock got thicker. And anyway, and then they started putting out an issue, but then they would have five different covers of that issue, and the one issue would be the main issue, and these other five covers would be more rare. But if you were a collector, you would chase after these different, because you wanted each of the different covers, because you're a completist and a collector. So they just um, take advantage of you, um, to get more of your money, right? So the same thing happened in baseball cards. Now I'll explain the difference with movies, though. So uh, films are moving towards that direction where um, the mainstream is moving away from it, and even if they don't want to move away from it, but more people are going on streaming services, right? Uh, the boutique labels are pushing them away because you need to have a pretty good wallet in order to collect movies these days because so many of them are being gobbled up by the uh, by the boutique labels and put out like super special editions of these and you're paying like $60 for a movie or $50 for one movie, right? So imagine if your budget for the month is $150, you may be able to buy three movies in a month, maybe four or whatever, right? So it kind of kills your desire to collect movies because you know that if you wanted to make a library of all the films that you want, you're going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars, right? So it's pushing people out, even if they're not intentionally doing that. And what you're seeing is more and more labels are grabbing up mainstream films like this and putting out, um, you know, expensive editions of them. So if I want this on DVD, I can find it for $1 or two. It's a mainstream film; you can find it anywhere. It's very easy to find. But if I want the Blu-ray of it, all right, um, I'm going to pay through the teeth for it unless I'm lucky. And if I want to buy it new, I'm going to be paying $40 for it, right? So that's where I see it going. And I think uh, physical media isn't going anywhere. It's just changing, and it's becoming more for the well-financed collector rather than your average collector. So me personally, I'm not really participating in a lot of that. If I find a deal, like here's the 20th Century Fox version of Wild River, all right, and Eureka put out a Masters of Cinema version of it, and this one, by the time I would import it or whatever, it would be maybe $25-$30 for me to get this film, and then I would need, of course, I would need a region-free Blu-ray player to play it, right? So, but anyway, but I found this. I got that off the guy that I bought all those films off. I got it for less than $1, right? So much of my collection I've paid less than $1 for, and a lot of it's boutique cinema stuff, right? So I got really lucky there, right? Like before I ended up buying those films off the guy, I may have had maybe 25 Criterion films, all right? And of those, probably 20 of them were DVDs, not Blu-rays, right? And but every one of them that I had, I'd pay less than $5 for, right? You can find them for $2 here or whatever if you go to thrift stores or pawn shops or different areas, um, or people that are selling their collections because they don't want them anymore. You can usually get pretty good deals that way as well. But what I'm saying is, if you want to get the latest stuff in 4K, or if you want to get the Blu-ray issue of a film that you really enjoy and you have it on DVD and you want to get the Blu-ray for it, and Boutique Cinema has grabbed it to issue it, then you're going to be paying a lot of money for that edition. And because they limit the amount that they put out for them, all right, you're you will have difficulty trying to find anything, all right, anything um, of your taste or whatever. So, and it's going to get more and more difficult that way. You're going to see. I mean, I see it on online all the time now on Facebook Marketplace where people will list their boutique cinema Blu-rays and 4Ks or whatever. They'll buy them and then they'll list them for a higher price than what they bought them for. So, um, but and once they go out of print, my goodness, you're paying like twice, three times the price of what it was new when the label put it out, right? So um, it's very difficult to find any type of boutique cinema edition of a movie from a collector who's decided they don't want to participate anymore because it's getting too expensive. Maybe that's the reason why they're getting rid of their boutique cinema. They just gave up on it or whatever. It's just too expensive, and now they're trying to sell a lot of their boutique cinema for almost the same price as what they bought it for. I mean, I see so much of it. Um, you'll see an edition like this. If you see it online, it'll probably be $25 or $30. Meanwhile, you can buy it off the I mean, if you're in the States, anyways, you can buy it off the website for like 31.99 or 31.96. So they keep they keep their price, and if anyway, so that's where I'm seeing, uh, you know, home media going. That's where I'm seeing physical media going. Is it's going towards boutique cinema labels, and how they're surviving is they're putting out nice editions. They're cleaning up films. They love the films or whatever, right? I mean, these guys are movie lovers, so they clean up the film. They spend the time cleaning up the film, and then they give you a bunch of extra features, usually maybe a booklet in it as well, and then they charge a good amount for them, right? So basically, if you're going to be just like in baseball cards or comics, where you could go into a comic book store with your allowance or with your paycheck. You put aside $30 of your paycheck, and you can go in to a comic book shop and buy the 15 or 20 titles that you read every month, and still have some change in your pocket when you leave. Now you're going in, and you can't. You have to actually you know save up your money in order to buy just the stuff that you used to be able to buy with the stuff, the paycheck, a little bit of your paycheck that you had, that you could go buy it, right? So, um, I mean, the last time I went into now this is in Canada. I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but in Canada, I went in to buy just the regular series set of Tops. Tops comes out with the base regular series of it, and it was like 89.99 for a box, and it had like 250 or 300 cards in it, something like that. Anyways, maybe I'm misthinking because this was probably back in like 2010 or something. Anyways, I don't know how much they're going for now, but because they've gotten so expensive, when you go into a Walmart or something, they have these blister packs or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what they call it. They're little boxes that have 40 cards in it, and then they're selling it for 24.99. Right? I mean, anyways, it just killed the industry. That And hopefully it doesn't kill the movie industry. Whereas, and you're just basically everybody's going to get financially uh, tired of paying such large sums of money for the movies that they want to watch. I mean, some people will get excited. You watch YouTube videos, and some people will be excited for the newest 4K that's coming out, and it's going to be like $30 for this 4K, and they're excited to buy it, right? And some people's budgets are like in the thousands of dollars a month, um, to buy this stuff, right? And will it hold its worth? I don't know if it will or not. Like, um, but they'll have it in their collection, and I'm actually glad that there are people that are that way, that have a passion for collecting physical media, and will spend a large amount of money on that physical media, because I'm not one of them. All right. I really enjoy physical media, but what I want to do is I want to watch the movie. All right. So if I can get a DVD version of it for a couple of dollars, let's say I have $50 to spend this month, and I can get, let's say, 40 DVDs of 40 films that I want to watch, or I can get one of those 40 DVDs, and get to watch one film. I'm like, yeah, right, no way, right? So I'll look on the secondary market, and I'll pick up Blu-rays for $2, and I'll pick up DVDs for $1 or less, and I'll come across boutique stuff like especially like Kino Lover or Criterion, and I'll pick that up for like 10, 5, $2 each, right? So they are out there to find and to pick up, but it's a lot slower process. If you have money, if you have a large sum of money that you can spend on this, then you're going to get a lot more. But like I said, if I had $50 and I would prefer the 50 DVDs. That way, I'd have access to 50 movies that I want to watch, right? So, um, and I don't mind that. I mean, Blu-rays look better than DVDs and 4Ks. I don't know. I've never seen a 4K film, so I don't even. I think I have maybe one film in my collection that's a 4K. Um, but watching Blu-rays and DVDs, you do see the difference. But is it a difference of $35 to $1 or $6.99 if you buy it new? Is that difference big enough for you to want to buy the Blu-ray? And then like $40 for the 4K? Is it? Anyways, I'm happy there are people that will do that because it keeps the industry alive and it keeps um, the films that are difficult to find being put out all the time, right? But I just can't justify spending a large sum of money on one movie when I can get it in a DVD for a lot less, right? So basically, if you look at my library, probably more than half of my library is DVD, right? And I just go around, and find Blu-rays. So I just found this one, right, which is the Men in Black trilogy in Blu-ray. All right, um, I have it on DVD. Now I have it on Blu-ray, and I found that. And one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I'll be doing a video on it. Um, and seven other Blu-rays with that uh, box set. It's a nice box set. All right, of the films. I found those all. Um, for like $30. So one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11 films for $30. So like less than $3 a film, right? Um, so that's what I do, and I pretty much find the stuff that I want to find. I mean, there are some things that I haven't been able to find yet, but um, I'll eventually find them. And if you're patient, you pay a lot less, right? Um, but so to sum up, basically, is how where I see physical media going is going towards the boutique labels. And the boutique labels, they all have such love of film that they're doing it, but they're going to charge you a large sum of money for each one of the ones that they clean up and put out. And more Criterion and the other ones seem to be going more into the mainstream, and they're putting out films that you can find, some even on Blu-ray, um, you can find, and they're taking those films out of the mainstream and putting them into the boutique um, cinema area and increasing the price exponentially to get that film, right? So, um, but I think that's where it's going because that's the only way it's going to survive. You're not having hundreds of thousands or millions of people buying Blu-rays and DVDs like they used to. So if you're still going to put them out, you're going to have to charge a lot more for each individual one because the amount that you're selling is going to be so much less, right? So it's going the way of baseball cards. It's going the way of comic books. It's going the way of almost every type of niche type of hobby where it starts off fun and it starts off relatively cheap and fun to do, and then collectors come in and investors come in and speculators come in, and uh, and what happens is you just see a skyrocketing in the pricing, right? Um, so you're probably not going to be able to find a lot of the stuff. I mean, a lot of the stuff in the secondary market you're going to find really cheap, like DVDs. I mean, if you want to make a DVD collection, right now is the perfect time to do it. You could get like 5,000 films for like $500, or I mean, if you buy in large amounts, right? Um, and even if you're being more selective, you're going to spend $2 or less on a DVD, and pretty much everything that's ever come out on Blu-ray has already came out on DVD, and everything that the boutique labels are putting out on Blu-ray or 4K has already had a DVD release, right? So it's not like they're, I mean, not everyone, but I'm like 99% of all the films that are being put out on Blu-ray that haven't been put out on Blu-ray or are being put out on 4K already have been put out on DVD. So, you can find that DVD for probably $1 or less, as long as it's not in a Criterion collection, anyways. So that's where it's going. At least that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think that's where it's going? Do you think physical media is just going to continue going? It's not going to, it's not going to die or anything. It's just moving into a different niche market where you're going to be paying a lot more money for the films that you want to have in your collection than it was, like 10 years ago or whatever, right? So, and most of the mainstream is going to go towards the streaming services. And there's going to be a niche market for physical media, and it'll be provided by the boutique cinema labels. And instead of paying like $5.99 or $4.99 or $7.99 for a title new, you're going to be paying 24.99, 27.99, 35, 34.99, that kind of thing, right? And the really special editions, the limited editions, because everybody likes the limited editions, $70, $60, that kind of thing, right? So um, that's where I see it going. I don't think you need a crystal ball to see that happening, and um, I think that's where physical media is going in the movie industry. And hope you like this video. Tell me what you think. Do you think I'm correct in what I'm thinking, um, or do you think I'm bonkers? Do you think I'm bonkers? Do you think that mainstream media will continue to flourish? All the different studios will be putting out their own films, and they'll just license, let's say, special editions for the boutique cinema crowd or whatever. So they'll put out a regular edition of it on Blu-ray for $7.99, and then they'll let Kino Lorber put out a 4K of it, or that kind of thing. Are we going to see that, or do you think more likely are you going to see all the studios and all the license holders for all these films keep them, put them in a streaming service, and then charge a good amount if they're going to release it on a physical media, and they'll charge the amount, and it'll be the boutique cinema labels that grab a hold of them and put out, beautiful editions of them, but charge you a large amount of money for. Anyways, okay, so that's it. Thank you for watching. Um, if you like my channel, subscribe, leave me a thumbs up. What did you think of this video? What's your opinion on it? You think I'm correct? And I'll see you in the next video, and maybe I'll be reviewing some of the stuff that I bought over the last few days, and it should be fun. And I'll talk to you later, and you have a good day.